Excuse me?
How'd you take my wallet?
What are you talking about? Weren't you the one who told me it was my wallet?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. You are about to be amazed. Welcome to the top-rated anime podcast on the planet. Will Smith himself gave it 5 closed fingers and 1 firm slap. 10 out of 10 anime fans have recommended that everyone on the planet should check out this podcast, whether they are reincarnated into another world or not. This show is incredible. You will laugh. You will cry. It will change your life. Did you recently have someone that you had a fight with? Are you having trouble at work? Show them this podcast. Your relationship will change. We rank anime based on a standard set of criteria. Always win. Always, always win. We compare and contrast them, and then we recommend things that you're going to like if you like the show that we talk about. And we talk about deep things. We talk about funny things. We talk about touching things. So, whether you're a seasoned weeb or new to the genre, it doesn't matter. You could be 6, you could be 60. You're going to have an amazing time, a wonderful time. If this is your first time joining us, why haven't you joined us before? You are missing out. But don't worry, we forgive you. Every single show, we start with our first impressions of it. Tell you what we think, just give you a little taste, and then we take you right into our personal enjoyment, which is a 1 to 10 ranking based on our own personal rubrics, and we want your opinions too. You help make this show what it is. But wait, there's more. For the low, low price of free, we will give you a technical assessment, which is a 1 to 10 ranking based on a collective rubric where we tell you how technically good we think the show was. And believe me, you're talking to the 3 top experts in the world for anime. But not only that, we will give you, if you listen right now, through to the end, we will give you comparisons and recommendations for shows you should watch if you enjoy this show. And we will even give you insight into what we're covering on the next episode. I am Brett Jackson.
I am Skylar.
I might be Braden. Who knows?
We are your hosts from Kazakhstan. We each have varying opinions, tastes. We each speak 7 different languages, and we have backgrounds which should relate in some interesting dialogue, no matter who you are. We're grateful you're joining us for this week's show, Great Pretender, a crime mystery drama available on Netflix. We're going to be covering all 23 episodes. There are going to be spoilers because we're going to give you all the details you need to change your life. If you don't want spoilers, go watch the show and come back. Just a quick heads up, there is some mature content in this show if you decide to watch it. But without further ado, Braden, how would you describe your first impressions of this show in 1 sentence?
It's Freddie Mercury, crew. It's just that good heist nonsense. You just want to eat it all up, and it finishes in 2 seasons. Good. Which is advert somebody else I probably don't even know, but you can take the free advert, I guess.
So Freddie Mercury, you describe Great Pretender as Freddie Mercury. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I dig it. I can go next. To me, Great Pretender is a tall can of soda pop. The first half is incredible, refreshing, sweet. You're loving it. You're having a great time. The next, third of the can, it's kind of starting to get a little warm. Some of the carbonation's maybe going away a little bit. It's okay, I'm still good. I'm still here for it. I'm still drinking it. And then the next part of the soda is okay, you have it in your hand, and by this point, your hand's kind of warmed it up, and you're well, I might as well keep drinking, I'm already here. And then the end. The last little bit of the can of soda is just a warm, uncarbonated, kind of gross. You're questioning yourself, why am I still drinking this? But you kind of feel obligated to finish. So you finish it anyway, and then your stomach is like a little like, okay, I shouldn't have had that much soda in that amount of time, but like, okay, I finished it, and then you recycle the can. That's what Great Pretender is to me. Skylar.
A Robin Hood inspired series of heists, but who's playing who?
All right.
Words.
Okay, let's jump into our personal enjoyment. Just a quick heads up for everyone who's tuning in. You can find our personal rubrics on how we judge shows for how much we personally liked them from 1 to 10. Not saying how good it was, but how much we liked them on our website, 310anime.com, 310anime.com. You can find a ton of other cool stuff on there too. But we're going to jump into our rubrics. So on a scale of 1 to 10, let's go in reverse order. Skylar.
Alrighty.
What'd you give it?
I gave The Great Pretender a 7. And so for me, it is a show that I liked and I might recommend, but I probably won't watch it again.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I will go next. I gave Great Pretender a 7.5. For me, a 7 is a show that really keeps me interested and entertained and engaged, but it has some things that seriously bothered me or didn't really suck me in, whereas an 8 is a show that I really enjoyed. I was super into it, but it had some things that distracted me from the good parts, and so it's not, Great Pretender isn't quite a 7, but it's not quite an 8, and as you heard from my one sentence, I'll talk about why, but it kind of fits in that middle, so 7.5. Brayden?
All right. Yeah, I'll bring up the rear here. For me, this anime, especially after my second time through, I'm gonna put this one at 8.5 because the 9 and 10 rankings for me are pretty much as best as you can possibly be. The 10 being the difference that it is something that has actually tangibly changed my life in a reference directly to something that happened in the anime. This didn't quite hit that, and the ending, like we'll get into, was weirdly not on par with the rest of the show. Thoroughly enjoyed doing this, going through this anime the first and second time, and I will not stop talking about it if you let me go on it. So that's why we have a podcast here, so I can start going.
And let's dive in. What made us give those scores? If I could start,
Go for it.
the first arc where you're first introduced to Edamura and Laurent and everybody. The first arc is so good. It is peak anime to me because it is mysterious, it is exciting, it has some emotion, and it actually keeps you guessing. Like there were moments that I enjoyed a lot because I didn't know exactly what to expect. Even when I thought I was starting to figure it out, then Laurent gets shot and I'm like, oh, wait a second. Is he actually part of this show? Now, granted, I didn't watch any trailers for this show or anything. So if I had seen a trailer and he was in scenes I hadn't seen yet, it would have spoiled it for me and I would have been whatever. But it was surprising a little bit. And then once I saw that all the people who were involved in making it happen, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm into it. I really liked the first arc, like a ton. I would give the first arc like a 9 for me. It was awesome.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Like, the fact that they are willing to up the scale of what a heist could be. They're willing to up the involvement or the scope or what they're willing to do to steal the money from the corrupt rich guy. It's real good. It's really good. It's really refreshing to see that level of investment and what that looks like. It's so fun. It's so fun. Smokes. And by the first episode, you realize that not only had they hyper-duped a notable the scam artist in Japan, our main character there, Makoto Edamame, as he's lovingly referred to as. Good little snack, I guess is what the whole point was. Which actually, hold up, that nickname coming from Laurent is very telling about a whole lot of things if we're really thinking about it.
How so?
Oh, it's just allusions to his sexuality throughout the whole show. And to give Edamura a little snack nickname, that's a little... That's a little.
I think-
that's a little hidden note.
I think
Maybe.
that based on season 2, actually Laurent's. I think that the kind of flamboyant side of Laurent is him actually trying to compensate for the trauma that he experienced.
Sure.
Like I think it's a deeper part of him that was really cool to explore in season 2.
Especially since season 2 was the series finale. Like the whole thing was the wrap up.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yep.
so not only do we have the crew conning a Japanese scam artist to pull him into, an American heist. That's the start of it. They infiltrate the FBI. They have they build like they get a whole repertoire of like firearms and whatnot for this whole gun show display that you referenced earlier, with Laurent being shot at. And Abigail's infiltration before the thing even starts to like really sell off the drug being all the hype that it's supposed to be, the Sakura magic or whatever they call it.
Right.
It's just that is so bleeding refreshing, especially I was thinking about this my second time watching here. Is this show, it's everything I wanted Kageyama Love is War to be. Like when you guys described to me like these two high school students that are super intelligent, they're gonna go to any lengths to like not profess love to each other. I wanted this high scale love chicanery, which is where I didn't enjoy Kageyama's Love is War. Oh, but it was juicy here, crew. It was so good.
Skylar, what things did you like?
So, one thing that I kind of noticed as I was getting into the third arc was the pattern that they had established. And it was a pattern that worked pretty well for them. There were always two people that they were effectively scamming, but one of them was better than the other. I won't say that they were both good, but one was better than the other. And so it was just interesting to see how, even though they were using the same pattern, how it still felt new every time.
Actually,
further-
could I give one of the things that actually didn't like about that
Sure.
is, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Skylar, but you just reminded me that by the end of the series, I was kind of getting tired of the pattern, because every time I wanted them to like do something different, it just ended up being the same thing. This is where the soda started to get a little warm for me, where I was like, okay, there's not as much mystery, because I'm like, guess what? Whoever Edamame is interacting with is in Laurent's pocket. He paid him. Oh, the pilot guy who we thought Edamura was getting a real job. Nope, Laurent paid him. It wasn't surprising anymore. To me, they repeated the same things so many times that it started to lose flavor for me. And I wish they kind of kept it. And the last arc, the child trafficking arc, is a little different in that case, but then they did some other things that I just hated.
Yep.
So we'll get to that later. But what else did we like about it? Well,
I want to touch on the pattern thing. Is like some of that pattern is also that stinking Edamura doesn't want to be a con artist at the start of every single arc.
Yeah.
And that's it. Somehow it's not as distasteful as some of the character resets I've seen. Like I've like him almost pretending to want to live a different lifestyle, but he doesn't, because he earnestly wants to be a pilot mechanic or whatever. They definitely have a pattern. So what I'm getting is that they definitely have a pattern, and they definitely, I hope at least, understood that they couldn't rely on that pattern for too long, which is why they ended the series when they did. They successfully traversed people's first they did each character got their own kind of mini arc. You know what I mean? Like the first one, I'm not really sure they pinned that one on. I guess it was Edamura, but he also had a lot of stuff in the last one with Laurent, or not with Laurent, but as well as Laurent. The second arc with the airplanes was definitely the Abigail arc, with a lot of war trauma and dealing with traumatic issues and the like with her and the pilot. And then the third one being all about Cynthia and the art world. Like, I like how these heists like got to touch into some really huge and beautiful parts of our world that I just don't encounter here in Utah or wherever you said we were residing in.
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. That's right. I mean, yeah, obviously. Yet I'm glad they didn't go further, because if they had gone any further than the last episode, especially with the last arc ending the way it did, I just I don't think I could have hooked on it for too much longer. So it didn't.
Did you
I'm a good
guys?
save.
Did you guys like the art style? It was super unique.
Yes.
Yes.
Very unique. Did you like it?
Yes.
Okay.
How about you, Brett?
I thought it was interesting, and I didn't mind it. There were some times when my eyes kind of got tired because the distinction between the foreground and the background was sometimes really hard, and it was like my eyes got tired a couple times watching it, especially the Dubai arc with the airshow racing.
Yeah.
That one I don't know why. Like we just watched the anime movie Bubble over the weekend, which is super vibrant and bright and saturated and busy. But I didn't really mind watching that. But for some reason, this art style just kind of fatigued me a little bit, and I wasn't loving it. But I didn't hate it. I was
the opposite. I mean, although I kind of, especially at the end of it, could not stand Bubble by the end of that one. The Great Pretender had just the like coloration and vibrance that I just really took my teeth into. It was actually in this watching, which we might get into in the technical scoring, we realized that one of the essential parts of their art style. Nope, that's a technical thing. I love it. I'm gonna take my technical. Never mind.
Okay. Skylar, what about you?
Yeah.
So, to kind of go back a little bit on something that was mentioned with the pattern, the thing that was bad about it is that they kept the pattern a little bit too rigid. Like they were too rigid with the pattern. And the same thing is true with Edamura.
You're talking about the story pattern, right?
Yeah, the story pattern and also
the
certain
story
character
pattern. Okay.
patterns. Where
you just jump conversations on us. So
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I realize. Sorry, but like for example, with the story thing, like when they were all shot on the mafia boat, I was like, oh, they're fine. It had kind of lost that edge to me. And
I'm gonna maybe pause because I want to get there. But what did you think of the art style? That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, and the art style, the way that I would describe it is painterly, because the way that they did it is that normally if you had a light casting, the glow, then it would be this nice spherical glow. It's like a drop shadow. But with this one, they didn't have it be a nice circle. You could see like the strokes of the brush, and they were very deliberate with showing those textures and patterns in the art. And the same thing goes for roads or other areas of detail where there's just large areas of it.
And it's so good.
And so
I love it.
it was just a very unique take. It reminds me of wow, I'm blanking on the name. Grimgar.
Oh, okay.
Because again, Grimgar is watercolor art style. And so Great Pretender also has a very similar style, and that is very artistic with the way that they use the brushes and that style of painting in everything that they're doing.
We have gone right back into technical land, which I'm finding because I got one more note on there. It's interesting you link those two. I would never link those two. Great Pretender Grimgar's art style, which means there's something. Because I do note that Grimgar has is like more detailed or more, I don't know, has more life to it than your typical anime. Yet it seems after the fashion of typical anime, well, this Great Pretender seems to have its own art style. It's kind of drive towards lots of reds, lots of like blues or greens. The background's never what you think it might be. It's always an explosion of color more than that.
Right, and that's also just where, even if you have one person that's using a similar style or technique, the environment that they're doing this style in will change their color palette, or they might
Yeah.
prefer certain colors over others.
Cool. Well, let's get back into
But that's
the
technical.
enjoyment land. Let's go back into the enjoyment
yeah.
land
So
because
I'll
there's
mention
some
one other-
real good stuff in here.
I'll mention another thing I think they did really good. I liked the music. I think
Yes.
the music was really good, and it was very Cowboy Bebop esque in that they used a lot of jazz and a lot of different, a lot of different swing and instruments, and so and it worked. It worked a lot of the time. I thought it was really good. I like the music.
Yeah.
Me too. And intro outro for that matter. Brett, did you ever see the intro outro of this show?
I always watch it on the last episode. I
Good,
always
good.
watch the intro outro.
Because unlike most anime, I watch intro outro on every episode because goodness is so good. And the whole Freddie Mercury thing was just a reference to the outro because the outro is The Great Pretender is a Freddie Mercury song. That's his voice singing.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, oh, goodness gracious. And so in ways of like intro outros spoiling, yes, absolutely. These spoil. I mean, they reference everything. There's not a single thing in the intro or outro that is not a direct reference to an episode, an arc, whatever. But I loved it. I loved seeing the places like the lines when it lines up to where, oh, this scene is a reference from this part of the show, specifically this scene that they showed, and that was a really cool moment. I'm glad I was ready for that. Like in ways I get spoiled on by like trailers or intros. This I swear is what they're aspiring to do, is like give you like the right taste in your mouth for when you encounter that thing in actuality. I really enjoyed that. What about you guys? I guess you watched it
personally-
last, Brett, so you can't really comment.
Yeah, I personally
Yeah.
haven't watched any of the intro outros, so I don't know.
They are very good. I will say they are very good. And I have listened to the music from them outside of the show, which I think speaks highly of it.
Okay. All right.
What else did you anything else that we want to say that we like really gushed about, that we liked, or that transitioned? Skylar, go
I
ahead.
got something. So, one thing that is actually kind of rare in anime is that they handled other cultures well in the Great
Yes.
Pretender.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a Japanese thing, I guess, but normally they just, like, whenever there's a foreigner or they're in some other country, it's pretty rare that they get it right. But in the Great Pretender, they actually did a really good job.
Yeah, and on par with that, I think it's worth mentioning that the dub of this show I actually did enjoy. It was good. It was a good dub. They had some accents and some different things. Not as much as I would have liked, but it was a I would say it is an above average dub, especially compared to other shows.
As far as I'm aware, the voice actors that did the English dub also spoke in French or, whatever language they were Skype. They use multilingual artists to be able to keep the character between different languages. And that is very good. I really like that. They do it in the first episode too, so you can know in the first episode whether or not you like the English voice acting and the swapping between speaking in Japanese versus speaking in English. In fact, I remember when we first watched the first episode, we had put on the English dub, and they start in speaking in Japanese with dubs on the bottom, or with the subtitles on the bottom. And we're like, wait, this isn't right. Are we on the right version? And we sat through it, and eventually they said, all right, we're translating now from English to English for the English dub. But we wanted to start, because we're in Japan in this international heist anime, we're going to speak Japanese for a bit.
Yeah.
And
So, yeah.
notably, in Laurent's field, bad Japanese. Very, very poor Japanese. I mean, towards fine, but it did not sound nothing like the other two natural Japanese citizens that were portrayed
True.
there.
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, that's very true. All right, I'm gonna say one other thing that I liked, and I'm gonna transition this into things that I actually bothered me about the show.
Yeah.
So I actually did like, so in the final arc, so like, okay, first thing, when I was saying that, like, it's a can of soda, first arc, incredible. Second arc to me was okay. And then, like, as the arcs went on, I just started to get more fatigued and dried out and kind of lose flavor. The last arc for me was a combination of, like, really good intense flavor, but then like swallowing a piece of garlic in the middle.
Okay, yeah, I
so
follow that.
So that, because the ending, there was a lot more raw emotion and character development and power and deep things, like
And Dark Side of
Edamura's,
Society too.
yeah, dark side of society, dark side of Edamura's relationship with his father. He legitimately thought he killed his father, which is intense. And the aspect of child trafficking, when we see him become the person he hated and telling the kids to smile, like, your kind of heart sinks to your stomach, and it's a little gut-wrenching. And I love when a show can make me feel that way.
Or the moment in that arc when he's trying to free the kids, and he wants to come out of the pen. He has it all set up to be able to walk them out, and they say, "No, what are you going to do differently than anybody else has done to us? You can just put us in some system, aren't you?" And they resist him. I'm like, oh, ooh,
Yeah.
dang, man.
So
that's...
I really liked the character development in the last arc there. But the ending of the show is where
so stupid.
I think the biggest sour moment for me was, because it was so frustrating. Because, again, one thing I mentioned is I was getting tired of the repetitive nature of the cons and how nothing was a surprise anymore. And when Edamura was doing all that stuff, I was like, dang, this is surprising. This is moving the show forward emotionally. This is taking it in a different direction. Guess what? Psych, it's the same thing we've done over and over again, and everyone was in on it, and Edamura wasn't really whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And then they knock out the bad guys and fly them to an island where they recreated the entire building. I was like, okay, it was just
and
too
not
much.
only that, they also added in like a bad guy rally curtain call.
Oh no!
Where they collected all the other villains from the other 3 arcs and they put them in the same building for some reason and said, "All right, you guys are gonna stick on this island." Ha!
And
got 'em.
They were inexplicably just there to. It was like the League of Villains, the band of misfits just got together and was like, "Oh, yep, not." And the other thing that frustrated me about that was, no one got consequences for the terrible things they did. All the villains at the end got out of jail because they bribed their way out. And, oh, guess what? We're here gambling on a boat. And I'm like, that's not a happy, funny thing. That's like a disheartening, stupid thing. And then the guys who ended up on the island, like, the after credit scene was the island being empty. So clearly they got away. Like, I was very, very frustrated with the ending of the show. It tanked it by like a whole point for me in enjoyment. I thought it was stupid.
Yeah, it tanked because you guys might remember that when we first had the anime club about this episode, I had this one at a 9 for myself for enjoyment. Then on the revisited that ending, like the ending is such an important thing for me, especially when you have this beautiful interweaving, like progression of stories and characters and a development of like settings and exploration of themes and all that. To end on that just horridly done curtain call.
Yeah.
I don't know what led them to think that was going to be a strong idea for them. I have no idea. I can't fathom where they thought that was going to be the pull, especially when they do the stuff they do and all the sit-ups that they have. Why do they land there?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Okay, look, Skylar, I know you have things to say. I just want to really quickly say that's, to me, where they went wrong, because a good heist movie or show, in my opinion, is one that walks that line where you're constantly flirting with your suspension of disbelief, but it's believable enough that you think it could happen, and it grounds it in enough reality that you're like, okay. And so the first arc, it's like, okay, I can actually see that being pulled off. But the last one is just so ridiculously unbelievable that it just doesn't land. It's just so fantastical. It rips that part of a good heist out of it for me, and just yeah. Skylar, what are you gonna say? You've got a bunch of stuff you probably want to add.
Oh yeah. So to me, a bad ending can tank my rating by 1 to 2 points alone. Or
Agreed.
it could also raise my rating by a point. And it's happened. And so, I don't know, I've talked to a few people who have written stuff, published stuff, and it's really interesting the way that they decide to end things because, well, I won't really go there because it's a whole conversation of itself. But
Probably good for technical.
yeah, probably good for the technical.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, the leaving your audience dissatisfied with the ending is the worst thing you can do. Because kind of like Brett was talking about, that's the flavor you walk away with. That's what you remember. That's the flavor that lingers. And so if you leave your audience on a sour note, they're not going to have fond memories. If it was all over the place, but it ends on a high note, that's what they're walking away with.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
I actually, can I make a call out really quick?
go for it.
So I was looking at some YouTube videos and kind of listening to people's opinions of the show that I thought were interesting, and I liked some stuff in it. There's Mother's Basement was like, this is like the anime of the year and more. It's like in a class of its own. But this anime channel that I found, Tsunami, has a video called Great Pretenders Wasted Potential. And it is 22 minutes of exactly how I feel about the ending. He recaps it in his description of the video, says, when the first 3 cases of Netflix's Great Pretender came out, I thought I had found my anime of 2020. That is until the 4th and final case dropped, dropping the ball along with it. A real shame. And I agree. And he goes into all of these amazing points that I really, really resonate with. I've shared the ones that I really wanted to share, but if you listen to his video, him and I have very similar tastes. So like if anyone thinks they want someone else's opinion on how the ending of the show was really kind of lost potential, check out that video by Tsunami. It's really good.
Yeah, link that to me, actually. I'm going to make sure to involve that in the video when we get around to editing this.
You know what? We'll include the link in the video description. We'll do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I got one last tag because I think we're start ready. We have a lot of stuff we want to talk about in the technical, obviously. But one last thing I want to shout out is, yes, it flops so hard. Yet I literally came from watching Rick and Morty season 4 with my roommate, specifically the heist episode, where if you guys haven't seen it, they literally just rip on every trope of heists for half an hour. And it's so good. I loved that episode. I went from watching that to watching Great Pretender and was awe-inspiringly fulfilled. This is just a good heist meal. It's good stuff. You don't really need to watch the last arc. You do if you want to figure out the outro and intro stuff that's not referenced in the other 3 arcs. But season 1 just does you a good service.
You know, you just reminded me. When I watched the first arc from Great Pretender, it reminded me of Ocean's 11, which is one of my favorite heist movies. Ocean's 11 is so dang good. I remember the first time I saw it when they reveal that they were the FBI SWAT team that went in, and that's when they stole the money. I was like, yes, let's go. That's so cool. That is so cool. And then I remember when I went and saw the newest Ocean's movies in theater, which I think was, what was it? What was it called?
I don't know.
Even?
Are you talking about the all-female one?
The all-female one. And it has
whatever
nothing to do with the fact that it was an all-female cast. I love all-female casts. But
Yeah.
it was not good. And for me, I did not like it. So it's like, for me, Great Pretender is Ocean's 11 versus Ocean's whatever the heck it was. Oh, Ocean's 8. It was Ocean's 8. That's what it was.
That's how numbers work.
Versus Ocean's 8. And in fact, this is actually a good time to bring up something, which is the People's Score because we've given our personal enjoyment ratings. So let me actually bring up the Ocean's movies just really quick. So Ocean's 11, let's see. Nah, never mind. We'll just do Great Pretender. So Great Pretender has on my anime list 8.3 out of 10. IMDb an 8 out of 10. Analyst an 83, and 94% of Google user gave it a thumbs up. So that's actually right in line with our average of the three of us. So
For once, we agree with them. That's crazy.
yeah. So we're right. Despite how much we hated the ending, we're still right in line with everybody. So okay, cool. Any other like quick final bing bang boom things before we go into the technical?
I loved Arc 3. Arc 3 is about art and appreciating art and like the value of art and stuff. And it just made me happy to see those conversations happen on screen.
All right. That was my least favorite arc.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like you said, it kind of like, especially if the pattern it went downhill for you. Though, yeah. And then probably season 2 was my least favorite arc. But even still, it was fun to see. I don't know, just fun to see the conversations about big money and where big money can come from. At that point, it was gambling to keep your business alive. Spoilers, but we're already well past that at this point.
I just remembered one of the other stupid things I hated about this show.
Go for it.
The freaking Dorothy, right? Is that her name?
Yeah.
The love of Laurent?
Yeah.
The fact that she just is alive at the end of the show and the ring shows up from a fish, like gosh, dang it, come on. The only real and the other reason I hated it, other than the fact that it's horribly convenient and just whatever, is that this show refused to have stakes. And that's the thing that really frustrated me. A heist should have stakes, but Laurent was always so far ahead of everybody that there was never any real danger for anyone, because at the end of every heist it's yep, we had it planned the whole time, I'm a freaking genius. And then even the only real consequence that this show was able to have the balls to commit to having, which was Dorothy dying, they even went back on that by the end. This show was gutless. It was gutless in that respect, and that really frustrated me. When I was watching it with my wife,
she had like
the episodes
stupid memory loss or something? Is that how it resolves?
She had memory loss. They pulled the amnesia card. I was sitting there and I'm like, please don't let her be alive. Please don't let her be alive. And then they show like the ring and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's alive and she's gonna get the ring. Like, come on. I was face palming myself so hard I gave myself a permanent red mark on my forehead.
You gotta think that the guys that wrote this show were watching stinking Fast and Furious series.
Oh gosh.
Because it's the exact same, like, oh, people like it when the characters come back from the dead. Oh, good. All right, we'll take the notes. Whoop, 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 whoop. No, kill him. Give him the dead card.
I have one other question for you guys.
Yeah.
How did you guys like the supporting cast? Abigail, Jones, Paula Dickens. How did you like them?
Didn't really care for them.
Supporting cast?
Yeah.
I guess
the crew.
Secondary.
Yeah, the crew, because Edamura and Laurent are the primary cast members. They're who really drive the story.
Yeah.
But then you have Abigail Jones and Paula Dickens who have their own backstories. And...
Yeah. I liked them. Like Cynthia, Abigail, Laurent, the crew. Yeah, the crew is great. Mm-hmm. They kind of feel a lot like, except for when it's their arc, obviously, but characters from, we've already said it, sticking
Oceans?
Cowboy Bebop.
Oh, by Cowboy.
Where they have like an archetype that they are, and then it's a pretty good and usable archetype to play with, but it's kind of one-notey, and when they're not being focused on it doesn't feel very deep. Again, I'm talking about character technical stuff, but I thought you were referring more to about the real side characters, like the Siwon Jin and the glasses guy that was Edinburgh's buddy in Japan, and those real auxiliary killer characters. Which all kind of seem like almost copy pasta the same people with like a one little flair difference to them.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's how those characters are most of the time.
Yeah.
Skylar, you said that you didn't really care for him.
Yeah, didn't really care for him.
I didn't mind. I didn't mind them. I thought they were fine. I felt myself being a little disappointed at their backstories. I actually liked Paula Dickens a lot. I really connected with her emotionally, kind of that relatable. Abigail Jones for me was it was so far out there from what I can personally relate to, like a child soldier from like a bombing.
Hold
and
up. You're
What?
saying Paula Dickens, but you mean Cynthia Moore.
Do I mean
Paula Dickens is her undercover name, but she's infiltrated the
Oh!
FBI in the first
My
arc.
apologies.
Cynthia.
Yes,
redhead.
I got confused. Cynthia's the redhead. I liked Cynthia's story. Yes.
Yes. Me
Okay.
too. It was sweet
But-
and about art again. And
I did like that. I liked that was my least favorite arc, but I loved her backstory and
Oh,
it was
yeah.
very relatable and
Yeah, especially when she
grounded.
goes to see Thomas, her love interest, like during the heist, as part of the
Yep.
heist. And those conversations were really cool to have as part of the show.
definitely. I didn't really feel connected to Abigail, but I really liked Cynthia's and yeah. Anyway, okay, I just want to know what you guys thought about that. Okay, moving on. Pen is flying to our technical rating. So a quick recap for everybody. Our technical rubric is also available on our website, 310anime.com, 310anime.com. You can check it out there. We go into art, story, characters, and delivery, and we rank each one on a scale of 1 to 5, and then we combine them all together to give ourselves a final 1 to 10 ranking on how technically good we think the show was, and we try to come to a consensus. We always start with art. Art includes music, animation, sound design, art style, intro and outro. Braden, kick us off.
Yeah. I'm going to read off the terrible on this one is it is frequently bland, poorly done, or repetitive. Exceptional being the composition always delivers powerful moments in excellent fashion. If you guys know my little squeeze, the art style on this one, the art direction in general, the overarching thing, just gives me the happy feel goods. It just does over and over. Like they have themes, they have motifs that they keep coming back to over and over for certain points. In fact, even certain points multiple times within an episode or like subsequent episodes in a row, they'll use the same motifs. And they're still fun every time because there's exciting jazz and it's a bunch of trumpets and it's worked in and it doesn't feel overplayed, even though it probably is overplayed.
I'm actually,
it.
if I could add to that, I'm going to back you up and say that even though I wasn't excited about the art style, even though I didn't like it, I think what they accomplished with it was really technically good. Like they had a very clear idea of what they wanted it to be and look like. They consistently executed on it. They executed it well. Like I am gonna back up that the art style and the animation was good for what they were going for. They committed, and I think they executed well. Skylar, what are your thoughts?
So something interesting I came across is that The Great Pretender was done by Wit Studio. Does that name
yes,
sound
they
familiar?
were. Yes,
Yeah,
they were.
definitely.
They're the ones that did Attack on Titan, Vinland Saga, and also Ranking of Kings more recently.
And Bubble.
And
Oh, really?
Bubble, you're correct.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Which we referred to in this episode about vivid colors. Yes.
yep. So, I would agree that the art was really good because they had a very unique style and they never really went back on that style. There wasn't really any time that I saw a scene and I was like, oh, they cheaped out on that one. The animation, I would actually say wasn't that impressive. It ranged anywhere from bad to good.
I was going to say, I was going to lean towards you on the animation evaluation because I definitely was swept away by the art style
Yeah,
to
there
notice
was,
the animation transitions.
there were a lot, well, there was a good amount of just janky animation. Like there would be a dog barking, but there would only be 3 frames. And again, that's a slight exaggeration. 3 frames of the dog barking.
Sure.
But then there were other areas where it was just really beautifully done. And so that's why it ranges from bad to good in animation. Sound design and music, you both mentioned it. It was done really, really well. They did a good job on that. I did notice the music, and it was good.
There was some place I remember. I can't remember somewhere in the last arc I was just listening to yesterday. There was some sound design notes, some like little like clacking of teeth or like ice in a cup, clicking around a cup, or like footsteps. I was like, wow, that is really on point and like well balanced and good stuff. I can't remember the specific of it though, but I did want to shout out that moment.
So where do you guys think we're leaning in the?
One second, Frank. I got one more thing to gush on.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So on the art style of this, I noticed something this time, and it was something I think was really cool. The color black was almost absent in this movie, in this anime, except for doing line art on characters specifically. Buildings, background substances, countertops, chairs, tables did not have black line art outlining them. It was browns or reds or a different flavor of whatever the natural color of the thing was. While main characters and main character subjects, like sometimes when they were flying an airplane, the airplane would be outlined in black, had a focus driven to them by a black outline. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
Well,
But over and over again, like between that and the fact that they did a lot of their shading of different colors and not like a black tone, they just picked a different red that it resembled lighter or darker tone or like motions between the light and the subject. Happy feel good. It's so cool. It's so cool. I did not see that the first time, but the second time I was looking and it's so kind of made me happy.
And
so kudos to them.
That's what I was saying about the painter style. Because in paintings, there is no line art.
I see. So, I honestly, I'm just calling in defeat here and for our score, because for other shows that I've had as impressive of art direction, we've given a 4.5, so I'm going to push for a 4.5. I'm going to say that about here as well, because what they were trying to go for and the music was a full, beautiful composition that executed very well. I think we do have notes about animation specifically that I can't say I was in awe by the movement of the characters, except for I guess the airplanes in the second arc was pretty cool.
I'm pretty sure those were 3D though.
Great, I loved it.
I'm actually gonna jump on that train. I think I could easily push for this to be a 4 or a 4.5 for art.
4 is the number
Definitely.
that came to mind.
I wouldn't be opposed to going to 4.5. I also wouldn't be sad if we gave it a 4. The reason I think, if I was gonna say like, okay, so 4 is it often delivers moments in an excellent fashion. 5 is it always does. The only thing I can think that kind of holds it back from that always criteria is sometimes the music is a little repetitive, like you mentioned. Sometimes some of the bigger moments didn't really wow me, but overall, I you know what, I'm gonna go 4.5. I'm gonna go 4.5. I think it deserves that. I don't think there's enough examples of that could hold it back for me.
I'm gonna fight and push for every single one of these well realized art direction shows for the 5 score that I want something on our show to be able to get. So yes, I will push for that and be happy with a 4.5 because that's what I have been on this show.
Skylar?
I'm fine with the 4.5. The only big detractor that I would throw on this is the animation.
Sure.
Because there was enough jank that every few episodes I was like, oh, that was bad.
And
there was a lot of jank in the background stuff going on,
and
that I will mention.
Notably is why this one probably sits more solid at a 4.5 for me than the other ones like Cowboy Bebop and Mob Psycho, which have both even like had less egregious errors in my opinion.
Fair.
So
Fair.
Again, I'm happy with the 4.5 here. I'm very happy with the 4.5 here.
Sweet. All right, let's move on to story. Story includes plot devices, tone/mood, continuity, world building, pacing, rules and systems, tropes. Braden, what's a 1? What's a 5?
One, terrible as it is frequently nonsensical, inconsistent, boring, confusing, ambiguous, unoriginal, and disappointing. While we jump up the top side, it was always consistent, well-paced, comprehensible, consummate, on point on its mood and tone, and unique. That's required for the exceptional number 5.
I will start our conversation here, kind of referring back to what we mentioned for our enjoyment, and it's that the plot of this show, I think, was actually a high point because the story they were trying to tell in each chapter, in each case, because that's what they called it, I think was actually a really powerful plot. However, where we had the problems with was that the plot devices that they used were constantly the same, which means that a show that would typically be called original became slightly unoriginal in the way that it delivered the plot because it just recycled the same devices. And I think the end especially was the worst offender because not only did it, and this will go into the characters as well, but not only did it take the plot and undercut it pretty severely, it also took a lot of the things that it accomplished in the last arc, which was actually moving the story in a different direction, giving it a different kind of tone and mood that was a good progression, and it kind of just slashed it all and brought it back to this silly comedy blah 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 type of thing. So I would actually propose that is a weak story moment, specifically for devices, but the plot overall I think is good. What do you guys think?
I got to add to this. Or Skylar, go ahead.
I would agree because, again, this is something that I mentioned with endings. The ending is the bow. It is what you use to finish your story. And so if you get anything that's poorly finished, it doesn't matter how good of a quality that product is if the finish is garbage and it's constantly annoying you. And so in this case, I would agree with what you said, where the plot started off extremely original and they started off going in a really, really good direction. But with the way that they ended it and the way that they wrapped it up, they effectively took all that progress and retconned it. They just threw it into the garbage.
And I have some verbiage I added there if you're done, Skylar.
Yeah, go for it.
We have another word in this story category called tropes, which is a dual-sided coin for this one, because on the most part, when they considered what would be a tropey like resolution of a story arc or a tropey setup, right? They executed amazingly. Most of our cases are pretty cut and dry. Like, you could probably figure out like why, or like maybe even a reference to where these cases have been done in other places of film or animation or storytelling, and say, all right, this is what they're going for. They wanted to have this conversation over that story over there. Like, the heists have been done 1,000 times. That's what the Rick and Morty episode was about. But then they did the Fast and Furious ending, and the last all the stuff we talked about. The last end was a real bad use of trope. Just a real bad inclusion of that. So while they did utilize trope very well throughout, for help us like be on top of these ridiculous scenarios, they did need to do it at the end. They could have taken us someplace they were trying to lead us to this whole time, and they just did not end there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this all being said, there's 2 points I want to bring up. Number one, tons of people probably disagree with that take. Tons of people are going to be like, no, I think it was a good ending because the whole show was about the fact that nothing was as it seemed, and so it went back to its roots. Some people would say it went back to its roots. We would say it shot itself in the foot. Yep. So I think this is going to be a divisive one, but hey, this is our technical assessment, and that's what we think.
Please voice a correction in the comments. Or
yeah, what do you think? What do you think? Put it in the comments. Did you like the ending or did you not? Go ahead and do this. If you liked the ending, say edamame is delicious in the comments. Let's confuse everybody who reads the comments. Edamame is delicious. If you didn't like the ending, then just reply Freddie Mercury. That's all you got to do.
No, there you go.
Edamame is delicious. Freddie Mercury. Okay.
Freddie
One
Mercury.
thing I actually want to bring up as a positive.
Yeah.
is Skylar brought this up earlier, and it is world building. The world building, I think, was actually done really, really well, with the exception of the completely unrealistic kind of final moment. Let's just take that aside. I think over 90% of the show was built.
Set it aside.
Super, super well. So yeah,
Where
does that leave us?
Is that what you're gonna say? Because I was gonna shout out pacing as well. Like,
Yeah, go for it.
I love sinking my teeth into these arcs. My roommate and I, when we first watched this like a year ago or so, we wanted to complete arcs, right? We wanted to like hit the entire thing because where it left
True.
off was fairly much taken up with the next episode. I want to see how it resolved because we want to see like, okay, they had this up. We know it's crazy. We have this idea it's gonna be this thing, but what's over there? And
Yeah.
oh man, they just gave you just, if it wasn't silly comedy, it was like intriguing
Character story.
character story. Yeah, thank you. And if it wasn't that, it was like how much money they were playing with it, what those conversations look like. Oh, just
Yeah.
good stuff. Good stuff.
I'll
On a very good
back
tempo.
that up and say that's something I enjoyed as well. Like I did want to keep watching each arc for the most part till it kind of got to the end.
Yeah.
Rules and systems. I'm actually gonna propose that's kind of a doc, because the system that they always used was Laurent's a genius, everybody's in his pocket, and everything's gonna be fine in the end. And so that kind of system of the almighty character, and even the weakness that they did show he had, they retconned it by having the girl be alive at the end anyway. Maybe that goes into characters. So I'm going to propose... Go ahead.
I have another toss for that one, actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is they had money problems sometimes, but never ran into that money limit.
Yeah.
I know they're working on multi-million-dollar heists, but it's sticking in the second arc when what's his butt puts down 25 million on a gambling wager that they're hosting, a casino they're hosting, or a gambling ring. They could have covered that magically. I'm sure they could. They always did. Like every time they brought up or like gave me any concern about how much money they actually had to perform what they were doing, they had more. They always had more. They always had more money. So
Yeah, true.
after a while, I've lost my investment in the money. We're running out of money. We're spending a lot of money, but can we not spend more? I lost my faith in that after a while.
So I will say that is a bit of a Deus ex machina trope, which is where they kind of missed the opportunity, as you said. Because one of the ways that you can use, and this is a classic way of generating suspense, is having the audience know just how close you are towing the line. And if the audience knows that you're standing on that razor's edge and you see these characters desperately trying to stay on the green side of that edge, that's what creates suspense.
The Mission Impossible rappelling from the ceiling scene.
Yeah.
Classic.
You know the dangers, you know what happens if he fails, and you're watching them toe that line as best they can.
Yep.
Because you understand the stakes.
This show was that scene, but then he ends up hitting the ground and nothing happens. And he's like, oh, okay. And then it happens 6 more times. And by the 4th time, you're like, I'm not even worried anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
and that is
a
one
good-
quick thing I want to note on about
Please,
tropes. So
I got to think here too.
the thing about tropes is that, one, there is like the industry-wide tropes. And those are kind of some of the character types that we were mentioning earlier. But the second kind of tropes are actually tropes that can be established within the show itself. And there's a good number of shows where there's like a running gag or a running joke in the show itself that you just have to understand. And that's essentially what they did with, people dying. It was like, oh, they died? No, they didn't. It was a trope. And they overuse it to the point that, again, it started getting docked because we knew exactly what that trope was.
Yeah. And you were hoping at the end that they had changed, but no.
Yep.
Yeah. Braden,
Now, I have a counter argument to some of the stuff we just stated.
please.
It has to refer to something I didn't like earlier. So our dear main character, Edamura's character reset, actually does something very important when it comes to stakes and like the illusion of stakes that's in this episode, in this season. Because he's consistently like resisting, or he's trying to reset, or he's trying to or be not part of the space. He's not in the loop of what's going on. When he shoots his dad, we love that moment. We love that shot and the implications that could have for him. And we get to see for like an episode or so before it gets duped, or before or realizes it, the impact that has on that character. So while he does have a character reset and isn't really allowed to do much progression, it isn't as it's I guess a trope you used well, or a plot device used kind of well, in that he's the reason there is any stakes in this show. He's the unknowing observer and participant, and
that's true.
led to some really cool moments.
I will say that in that moment, so what happened to me watching that episode was when the other two died on the boat. So when what's her name? Sorry, I lost my list. When Abigail and Cynthia, when they die, I literally turned to my wife and I was like, they're not dead. There's no way. The show wouldn't commit to doing that. It's a gutless show. They're not going to do that. Then when he killed his dad, I was like, okay, now wait a second. It actually made me think. I was like, I hope he did, just for the sake of having some character progression in this show. I was like, I hope he did, but I don't think so. And I literally, for the next 2 episodes, was sitting there like, okay, wow, he's really digging into this like new character. Like, I really hope this is real. Like, I hope. And then they have that moment where he goes up the stairs and his dad's there, and I was like, great.
Yep.
Great.
I was in the same boat.
I was dreading that being the case, and it happened.
I was in the same boat. When those two died, I was like, they're fine. When the dad died, I was like, oh, I don't know.
For a show that has all that setup and all that background, I'm glad they allowed some breathing room of that moment, because it did lean to some conversation without having the gravitas of a heavier show.
Well,
I would have liked a heavier show, but they didn't take it.
Here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
Because not Abigail, what's her name?
Cynthia?
No. Where did she go?
Dorothy?
Dorothy. Because Dorothy comes back, it all kind of gets retconned anyways, and so nobody ever gets killed when they're shot in this show. And one of the criticisms that I brought up earlier in the enjoyment was how rigid they were to both the story and certain other structures. That includes the hero's journey with Edamame. Because one of the attributes of a hero in the hero's journey is that they always have to be the unwilling participant on this journey. What does that sound like? Oh, well, that sounds like every time a heist is over that he has to hit that reset button, so that he's always the unwilling hero in each of these things. And when he kills his dad, I again feel like that was a missed opportunity, because he needed to pay for that mistake of killing his father as the hero. But it didn't feel like that.
You could argue that he paid for it by becoming what he hated.
Sure, but there is a book series that handles this really, really well, where the hero knows he is not supposed to kill this person. And he somewhat knows the consequences of what will happen if he kills this person. But he is so filled with rage and hatred that him killing this person causes the problem that he spends the rest of the series trying to resolve.
Sure. You know, you just reminded me, the one last thing I want to bring up. We've been on this topic for a long time.
It's a very interesting topic. I like this topic.
One last thing I want to bring up, and I wanted to bring this up earlier. One of the reasons I hated the ending so much, one of the reasons is because as all of the super critical emotional moments were happening, I wasn't invested because I didn't believe them. When Edamura pulls out the knife and he's yelling at his dad and he's like, he's freaking out, right? When he's having that emotional thing and all of his crew think that he's serious, I literally was sitting there like, this isn't real. I don't believe this. Like, I can't feel what the writer is intending me to feel, because they have made me feel like an idiot for believing them so many times that my guard is up and I'm like, I'm not going to believe you.
Literally in the first arc, they do this exact same scene.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
True. And so I can see how they were trying to creatively bookend it, but I couldn't get engaged because I didn't believe it. How does a heist work? It works because it's believable. Like, you con someone and they have to believe you in order for the con to work. I didn't believe this show by the end, and so that's why it fell flat.
Now,
okay.
I want to shoot something here before we start talking score. We've had these negative things, and these negative things are things I would say we find in most other anime. However, this one stands out because we wanted more. We expected more out of them.
It's because the show proved it could do great things.
Correct. So I just want to consider that when regarding its technical score.
So I'll throw out. Go ahead, Skylar.
It reminds me of Isekai. The first arc is usually the best, and then it starts falling off a cliff. But
Sure.
can't pretend it didn't fall off that much.
No, it didn't. And it really, the second season was actually really, really good. In fact, you need to watch the second season because you learn about Laurent's backstory and all this stuff. Like, you have to watch the second season if you watch this show. But it's just the last couple episodes that really are kind of off the edge. Okay, I'm going to propose this.
Sorry,
yeah.
I got it. I have one more. I'm sorry, but it's interesting.
It's been so long.
I know.
Go.
Okay, where do we talk about the messages of this story of the the writing, like the art conversation, like the gambling to keep a business alive conversation in the second arc,
Delivery.
like the drug dealer.
Yeah,
Delivery.
Delivery.
Okay, we'll put it for then.
Because in that sense, I don't care about the message itself. It's how well they were done.
Okay.
Okay. Story. Based on our conversation, I'm going to propose a score, and then let's pull it up or down.
Yeah.
I'm going to propose a 4.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Because really where our gripes are is in the last bit of the show, which means that often this show was consistent, well-paced, comprehensible, consummate, had a good had a on-point tone and mood, and it was unique. It's just the last little bit, which means we can't say that it was always those things, but it often was. So I'm going to propose a 4. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
What do you think,
This is
Braden?
interesting.
Because you're lower than we are.
Yes, it is. I was actually in the boat of talking about 4 going down, like even maybe onto a 3, like a very polarized 3, but I'm not sure if it deserves that far down.
No, it's better than a 3.
It's better than a
so.
3. I think so. Because like the problems we have with it involve a long-term setup of reusing a lot of points, right? It shines better and strong because of its plot and because of stuff like its world building and the like. And then it takes a huge hit because of its ending and how horribly done it did. So I would like to put it at a 4 if not for that ending, personally. And that's why I would propose if I want to propose down for the 3.5.
I could be willing to go down to 3.5. The only reason I would really pull to keep it up to a 4 is because if you take each case and you say each case is its own plot device, tone, mood, world building, opportunity, pacing, like each case was done really, really well, I think, in its exclusion, and even as a whole show, it worked really well. Is the resetting of Edamura at each case annoying? Yeah, sure. And kind of it's a lame plot device and they keep reusing it, especially where he's so unwilling. That was very aggravating. But I think that if you take the amount of time that the show was consistent, well-paced, and on point, it's a higher percentage than a 3.5 would deserve. So I would pull for a 4. Skylar, Braden's pulling for a 3.5. I'm pulling for a 4. What are you thinking?
So I just scrolled through what other shows we've given a 3.5 and a 4 to, and I think it is more in the 4 territory.
Give us some examples.
Yeah, give us some examples. Talk about
Some examples. So, one thing that's in the 4 category for story is Mob Psycho 100.
it. Actually, that's fairly on par with where this story is, if we're really being honest. Actually, you've got a good point there.
Yeah.
Keep going. Give us a couple
So,
more.
yeah, a 3.5 would be Cowboy Bebop. For story.
Dang, really?
Yeah.
Jeez, because that, man, man, that was a whole conversation. Like, I gotta go listen to that episode again. We did. Boy, oh.
I'm gonna say 4. I'm gonna go.
You know,
I'm gonna go with 4.
I'm happy with 4. Like I said, this is a 4 pulling down. It's in a very polarized 3.7, 3.8 area for me.
Yeah.
And I think I do think it deserves a 4. I think it deserves to pull up from that. It wasn't a catastrophic failure, except for the ending. It was a very good, well-paced experience that I had a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
More notable than most other anime. More consumable than most other anime. In its overarching realization.
Okay, moving on to characters. So we give a 4 to story. Characters, this includes their design, development, motivation, their action/inaction, what they do and don't do, their relationships, and their personality. Braden, what's a 1, what's 5?
1 for terrible. The characters are frequently unreasonable, confusing, inconsistent, unreasonably static dynamic, and annoying. While 5 exceptional being the characters are always understandable, consistent, reasonable, adequately static dynamic, and relatable. You connect to them.
Okay.
These guys sit pretty good, right, crew? These guys sit pretty good.
Skylar, you start us off here. What are you thinking?
I didn't care, and this is something that we brought up a lot in the story, so let me just rehash a few things.
Yeah.
Edamura constantly being reset, that's a big dock for me. Because it felt like whatever progress we got was reset. Consistently. As for other characters, even when they had their character arc, it was more like, oh, here's why they're acting the way that they are, but it didn't feel like they actually changed all that much. Their motivations, I'd say that their motivations are actually pretty good, because once you got that background, it's like, okay, you're just an angry person, or okay, this explains this behavior that you have and why you act that way. But most of the characters were fairly static. Or
I got
felt
some
like that
words
to me.
here.
I see where you're going with the static thing. I think the one thing I would add there is that because they gave each character their own backstory and their own opportunity to show their kind of inner psyche, I would propose that maybe they were a little more dynamic in how they got to where they were when the show started.
Yes.
But to that point, once you saw their backstory and then got to where they are today, they never really changed after that, to the point that one of the things that made it frustrating every time Edamura reset was everyone was standing on a boat or standing on an island like, haha, we all knew this was going to happen. Like, oh, we're fine. So yeah, I see where you're coming from. I just do want to give a little point, a little nudge to the fact that they did have some good backstory and
I want
flavor.
to
Which is true.
hone on a specific point of realizing that, and actually even a counterpoint to one of the claims you guys had, which is the characters don't change after their backstory arc. One counterpoint I have is Abigail, actually, because notably in the third arc after Abigail's arc, she's a lot more involved and connecting and with Edamura. They go on a date, right?
I will cede that. That is true.
And she also starts making observations on Edamura's behavior based on how she portrays him. That's something this calloused Abigail did before. Now, whoever was supposed to do anything in the first arc, I think it was more like the character development was heist. I don't know who that really was for. Maybe it was more establishing Edamura as a character than his backstory and stuff. And then Cynthia, I don't remember her changing too much in the final arc from her arc in the third one. But Abigail does make a very tender and real change in how she connects with our main character, Edamura. So I want to, okay, so that's my counterpoint, and I want to just emphasize on a bit is like I want to talk about these guys a lot the same way I want to talk about the Cowboy Bebop characters. Is they have like a solid, if not simple, character design that is powerful and flexible for them to use. It doesn't really get added to a lot, yet it allows for when they do have a dynamic, they have a way to emphasize a part that we might have not have seen too much of them. Like, for example, in the second arc, when Cynthia is trying to flirt with the prince, and he's like constantly just putting her off because he thinks she's old, and she's getting all flustered about that, and she's very like self-important about her beauty. Like, that's something we got to see, and they had these points that were always there and just got a little bit more shine or polish at times. I'm not saying they're complex. I'm saying they're solid, and they're very usable for the setting they put them in.
I'll add another thing to characters, that I know we talked about the ways that the characters interacted with the story, but I'm gonna give a point, or dock a point or whatever, to the ways that characters were designed. And what I mean by that is, I think that Laurent, for example, his character design, part of his character design was the infallible Laurent, where
Yes.
he almost never was surprised or didn't know what was going to happen, and was able to figure out impossible situations and always was 4 steps ahead of everybody. And yeah, there's exceptions, the very end and his backstory, but really that part of his character design was not, I don't think, is a strong point for a character.
Honestly,
it's a plot armor point for a character, honestly.
yeah, I agree. He's probably the weakest character in the show, Laurent.
But I really loved his backstory. That's the exception. Like, his backstory was really good, and it showed a side of him. But once you saw that side, again, like Skylar mentioned, once you got to present day, it basically didn't matter. Like, it was cool to know, but it basically didn't matter.
It was the same for me and Cynthia.
Interesting. See, I actually like Cynthia probably the most because I related most with her. We talked about Edamura about this a couple ways, but I think part of his character design that was frustrating to see how the other characters built relationships with him is he genuinely wanted to be an honest working person, have a good job, turn into a respectable member of society, and was constantly swindled into, sure, Robin Hooding the bad guys, but it wasn't what he wanted, and he wasn't able to live an honest lifestyle and was always pulled into these bad situations. That kind of, like, I don't know. I
honestly want to toss something on that.
Go ahead.
That's probably the understated part about Laurent's personality, is the manipulation of Edamura. Like, the fact that they need to do that, or he feels the compulsion to do that, is probably the most emotive thing that Laurent does up until the last arc. Which is not great. It's just manipulative, which it's a character note for sure. It's not a full-fledged character out of Laurent, in my opinion.
Yeah. If we had seen Laurent by the end of the show his colors of, like, he was willing to manipulate whoever he had to get revenge for Dorothy, and he didn't actually care about Edamura, and he was not just manipulating him to accomplish a goal, but he didn't care what happened to him. And we saw this darker side of Laurent. Man, that would have changed the story a lot, and I think it would have given it a lot of flavor that it needed, instead of resetting back to episode 5, we're back to there. And all the villains are free, which I'm actually going to throw into the character development piece. I think the way they handled the villains. Actually, no, I lied. That's in delivery. We'll get to that next.
Sure.
Moving on. What do you? Let's do this, Skylar. You rarely propose a score that we pull up and down. What would you propose for characters based on what we've talked about?
Ooh. Well, watches this at the time that it's different. Let's go with a 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
Braden?
Yeah, I'm feeling a lot the same, honestly. Like I don't know. It's one of those things. Remember how I keep complaining how like I have expectations for anime should be, and it's usually higher than what the average anime is, right? Like that's about where I'm feeling here. It's like if I want to say this one's like a 3 pulling up to a 3.5, but I don't think that's the case. Like they did use and have these characters interact in consistently interesting ways and led to conversations that allowed the plot to have its aggressive tempo that it progressed through those 2 seasons. So it can't be a 3. It must be a 3, even going up to a 4. Just the fact that how applicable and maybe not a 4. Because if we look at a 4, the characters are often understandable, consistent, reasonable, adequately dynamic, and relatable. Actually, dang, that's actually not a bad pull for these guys. Now that I said it out loud, that's actually not bad. It's like there is some unrealism with how extreme the circumstances these guys get pulled into and their knowledge bases, but they still resort to some good, earnest human bases that I tag to quite often. Maybe something about say a bit of static, but maybe even up to a 4. That's my where I'm at right now.
I'm gonna go right with Skylar, and I'm gonna say I think a 3.5 is spot on. Braden, would you be upset if we went to a 3.5?
That's a good question. On par with your average character, but reaching towards relatable, understandable, and consistent, and adequately dynamic, and then all that good jazz like talking about. Yeah, I think I can bend that way. I think this is more like one of those 3.8s for me. I don't feel bad taking it down to 3.5. It's in that range for sure.
It is once again tied with a 3.5 with Cowboy Bebop characters.
Great.
Okay. All right. Let's get on to our last category, which I think there's actually a lot to talk about here in this one.
Yeah.
This is delivery.
Delivery includes... Somehow I'm not surprised. One second. I'm somehow not surprised because all during our personal enjoyment, we just really wanted to like evaluate and like gush in this section about our opinions. So I'm not surprised we have a lot to talk about here. All right. Sorry. Continue.
So delivery includes the translation of the sub and dub, the voice acting of sub and dub, the script, and the edit. I will start by recalling something we said previously, which is that both the sub and the dub are good, like quite good. I would say like 4.5 territory. They are very good deliveries of voice acting, and I think that it's far above the average. So that I'm gonna say is a positive point.
Which
this
means...
one and singing, what is it, Code Geass? No, Steins Gate. This one and Steins Gate are the ones we say we have to watch in dub because it's just such a cool experience.
I wouldn't say that you have to watch Great Pretender in dub, but it is still a good experience in dub.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that it's not a must, but it is very good dub.
I just a sucker for the voice actors doing multiple languages.
That's true. That is cool. That is cool. Even though they didn't always use the same voice actor, by the way. I verified that.
Oh, did they? Oh, okay.
No.
They do the same thing in the sub, where they do speak in other languages in the sub, and they do swap out actors from time to time.
Interesting.
It's like
they probably use the same French dialogue, right, between both of them.
Probably. It would not surprise me at all.
That's really cool, actually. That's really interesting. All right. Anyway.
I would prefer, actually, with this show, I would recommend watching the first and second arc dubbed because it's in America and Dubai.
Yeah.
I would recommend watching the final one in Japanese because the majority of it is in Asian countries.
Yeah. You're right.
Anyway,
This is pretty cool, honestly, for
yeah.
a show
Yeah.
to how to talk about. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay.
So it does not get the normal pass if we do not dock on a bad dub.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike Steins Gate, like where the the sub is kind of a travesty to behold when compared to the dub. No, that holds up on both sides. Like I tried a couple episodes over in the subland, and it was as good an experience. I just had to read more of the subs.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into the deeper part of the delivery. Let's talk about the script and the execution of it. And this is where I'm going to bring up one point to start. And that is that I was talking about, I referenced it a few minutes ago when we were talking about characters. So when it came to the way that the characters interacted with each other and how their character actions were kind of woven into the script, that's where I started to get a little iffy on it. So we talked about Dorothy coming back to life. I think that's a story, a character, and a delivery problem. As far as the script is concerned, because they wrote in to the script of this character into the expectations, a bad expectation. Does that make sense?
No,
I'm not quite following.
because
I guess.
go ahead, Skylar. I'll take it. Okay, I'll take it. Because usually we talk about edit and where things are placed and how things are included. We figure that there's a better way it could have been reassembled to give what the writers were intending to portray, or the storyboarders intending to portray. Dorothy really could not have revived at any other moment in that anime. It was a trashy, ender cliffhanger bite. But really, I would not have put that anywhere else. If they really did intend to have that, that's the space to put it. I don't understand then how we could talk about this part of it when it was a intended story tool they were going to use.
Fair enough. That's a good point.
It's
All right,
a
let's move on.
conversation.
For me,
Let's
yeah. So,
let's move on from that point.
and then for me, the script, what the script is like the actual dialogue. Like
No, you're right.
How good is the actual dialogue? How well was that dialogue delivered? And so that's where those two are related.
Yeah, that's right. Forfeit my point.
Okay.
Carry on.
I agree that was a bad thing to do, but yeah, that's a different area.
Yeah. I remember in the translation and in the implication or the implementation of anytime there was a subtitle, because even in the dub version, there's subtitles for the other languages, right? Like I liked the it didn't feel unnatural in the translation. Like I felt like I was reading a character, even if it was given to me in words over voice acting. Like the French housekeepers or bed and breakfast father and daughter, the ones I'm specifically thinking of. It's like I realized those characters entirely through their, especially his translation, his subtitles. And I thought that was pretty cool. I don't really have any notes on edit. I did again, like I said before, when I shared out the messages. I'm really glad they touched on the conversations they had here, the movie industry and the drug deal cartels in the first arc, and what they consider like a family, and what that could be, a drug family. The second arc being about gambling, holding up the prince's aircraft conversation, even though that the brother prince, the business prince, didn't want to, or didn't really get a thrill out of gambling. He saw that as a worthy business venture. Like that's how he kept his business afloat, was by rigging the races and then betting on them. Like, ooh, that's dirty. Ooh, that's weird and interesting and dirty. Smokes, and I said it again, the art one, I love the art one. And then to the end with the child trafficking, that was really cool how they handled that. And the conversation they brought into that arc. Because when we talked about delivery with the Steins Gate one, and I had the big I object, we gave that one its 5 ranking in delivery because of how far and beyond the English dub was. This is a kind of an all around or really solid delivery of an anime.
It really is, actually. And I'll add that one of the main things that we really judge on when we say that it is elevating, what that means is that, like, the overall experience of the show, if you take everything, if you take the art, the story, the characters, and you have everything there, all of the pieces, and they're all great. Let's say they were all great. You have a good delivery. It takes something great and makes it even better. It really pushes it even further, which is hard for delivery to do because most of the time it's kind of meh. It's like, yeah, you had some good voice acting, you had some good lines. Yeah, it's good. But I would propose this elevated the experience. I think it really did.
I mean, to the point of, like, I think because they did so much, not only in this section, I was going to say in the delivery, in the voice acting, in the multiple languages, in the translation, that this is part of what built our trust in this show to where the disappointments, like, really hurt us, like, really hurt our scores and our enjoyment of the show. To notably have this as an always thing. Like, the delivery of this show is always believable, genuine, understandable, elevating, and enriching. Where their fault might be in the story decisions they made, or the kind of the characters they set up, the delivery itself was incredible.
Yeah.
And absolutely made this part of the
experience.
The experience. I'm running out of words. It's getting
Yeah.
late at night. Sorry, Crew.
Yeah.
I wish I had the eloquence to properly convey here, but the experience
I know
was
what you're going for.
always.
So do we think this is a 4.5 or a 5?
That's the same range I'm looking at.
Yeah, same. I'm trying
The
to
only-
think of a
The
note
only
against
reason
it. Yeah.
that's what I'm looking at too. The only reason I would think to hold it back from a 5, if I had to think, is that I did not watch. No, I don't know. I honestly could go 4.5 or 5. It's hard for me to think of specific examples. I'm good if we go either way.
I will say I'm gonna say towards 5 because this is consistently a show I'll talk about and say your experience of this would be because of how the voice acting is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
And the way and the script of the characters as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was thoroughly good. Thoroughly.
So we're
thoroughly
saying
enjoyable.
the delivery is always believable, genuine, understandable, elevating, and enriching.
Yeah.
I would agree. Yes.
Wow.
Buy our Rubik and its own merits. This one deserves it.
Yep. Okay.
No
I
protest
agree.
from Braden this time.
Nope.
Okay. I agree. All right. So that gives us our art 4.5, story 4, characters 3.5, delivery 5, which is a final technical score of 8.5.
Oh, true. That's
Rated.
So good. Yeah.
What does that mean?
That means this anime is our third highest rated technical score we've ever reviewed.
Wow.
Which this 8.5 on this show used to be like a far and beyond achievement for our technical scoring. We were going through like Cells at Work to start, and Haikyuu. 7.5 seems to be our reach limit. But smokes, the ones that stand above it are a place further than the universe, and then also Steins Gate, which had a 555 in its lineup. So
yeah,
to stand with
True.
those giants, kudos to this show. Absolutely well done.
Yep. True. Yeah, there's 2 shows that have a 555, Steins Gate and A Place Further Than the Universe, like you mentioned. Yeah. There's only of all the episodes we've done, this is our 11th episode. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 5 shows that have ever gotten a 5 in any category. Great Pretender is one of those 5.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool.
And
Pretty cool.
one day, one fateful day, we sticklers might finally give a 5 to the art category. It is not today, and it wasn't with Mob Psycho, and it wasn't with Steins Gate, and it wasn't with The Place Further Than the Universe, but one day it may happen where we give a
And
5 in the art category.
I've got 2 in mind that are gonna deserve it, man. I've got 2 in mind. Speaking of having shows in mind,
Yeah.
let's give recommendations. If you liked Great Pretender, or you want something more than Great Pretender, you should watch this. Braden.
Easy. Cowboy Bebop.
Yep,
Easy.
definitely.
It is
Definitely.
heisty. It is, while not a full-fledged heist show, it is, I keep referring to the characters are about the same tempo in Cowboy Bebop as they are in this show. The art direction is beautiful and fleshed and carries all that good trumpety jazz background. Just keep it up. It's Cowboy Bebop. We know it. We've already talked about it. Go watch that episode if you're not sold already. But if you like this one, absolutely Cowboy Bebop.
Definitely.
Oh, hey, Skylar.
Hi, Google.
Hi, Google.
Any other recommendations other than Cowboy Bebop?
Not from me. I've kind of peered through my list, and this show kind of sets apart from other anime that I've watched. Very notably so.
Okay. All right. I'll go next. I have a couple recommendations. Number 1 is a show called 91 Days. It's a 2016 show, HBO Max. Mystery-esque kind of noir show. The other one I'll mention that is just a detective show. It's The Millionaire Detective, Unlimited.
I
It's
haven't heard of either of these.
2020 show. So I'll give those 2 recommendations, which are very much in the theme of Great Pretender, albeit probably a little more on the serious side, less on the comedic side. However, let me now give 1 or 2 recommendations that's maybe a little off, like maybe not quite in the same line of the whole, investigative thing. I'm actually going to recommend, if you want something that has mystery and intrigue and you're not sure what's going to happen, Code Geass. I recommend Code Geass. Specifically, Season 1, which is incredible.
Interesting.
It's intense and a lot more serious. There's really no comedy to speak of necessarily, but it is a very intellectual. It will keep you on your toes if you like not knowing what's going to happen. Code Geass. Also has
There's
some
comedy in Code Geass. What are you talking about?
Sure, there's one episode where
Anytime you interact with the high school, they're all kinds of silly all the time.
Yeah,
That's their
there's-
entire point in the show.
That's true. That there is an entire comedic relief
The
thing,
president.
and there's an entire episode where they
exists.
chase a cat. But anyway,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Next recommendation. Actually, I'm gonna save my next one. Skylar, you go first, and then I'll give my last one.
And I got another one.
The only thing that comes to mind is actually one that I brought up earlier based off of the art style. And that's Grimgar Ashes and Illusions. Outside of that, I don't have any other recommendations come to mind for this style of show.
To be fair, Grimgar is an isekai, a gritty
Very-
isekai.
Yeah, very different
Not-
genres.
Yeah, totally different.
The
Just art
only,
style.
Yeah, it's just the art style that's like, oh yeah, there's that one thread that connects.
Yeah.
Braden, what's your other one? You mentioned one
I did.
earlier that you didn't
did.
like. Are you gonna bring it up?
No.
Kaguya-sama?
No, I'm not going to mention that one. No way. I don't like that anime. It's not. If I liked a heist mode here, I'm not going to talk about that one where it did terrible heists. Did like very, very hokey realizations. It's all flirty, wishy-washy. I did not enjoy that show.
If you want
No.
a cute romance version of Great Pretender and you like that kind of thing,
I
Braden has the
guess.
inability to recommend shows he doesn't like. But if
Correct.
you like cute romance anime where he didn't, then watch Kaguya-sama.
Sure. No. I actually have a show that, well, it comes up a lot. That
Okay.
is also, like Brett said about this show, is kind of like a tall glass of soda. where the end of it is you're a little bit tired of the soda at that point. Ladies and gentlemen, Yuri on Ice.
Oh gosh.
I said it out loud. That's right. It's coming back on this show. Talking about great art, great animation, a good little core of characters that leads to some real fun arcs between different divisions of ice skating. Oh my goodness, Yuri on Ice. Let's go, boys and girls. Let's go.
Braden will always find a way to tie in Yuri on Ice.
Until we've all seen it and we've done the review, I should. It's quite a one to talk about. It really is. Especially for the sports genre. Anyway.
All right, I'll give two more. I'll give two more really quickly. Number one, Psychopaths as a crime show. More serious. Okay. Psychopaths. The next one is one that I actually didn't really like that much, but it hits a lot of the same themes. It's a different take on a Sherlock Holmes show. It's Moriarty the Patriot. I didn't like it. Again, I gave it like a 6.5. And it failed to deliver on my expectations, but so did the end of this show. If you want something that's kind of in that mystery genre, maybe it doesn't execute as well as it, but it's interesting, and there's a high chance you could like it. I know a lot of people who like Moriarty the Patriot. They also like Great Pretender, so you might give it a shot.
Okay.
And if you do, let us know what you think.
But like Moriarty the Patriot is like watching the Book of Boba Fett. Like you're expecting one thing, and then you get a dry character, and then suddenly it's about the other character you wanted to see. In Book of Boba Fett, you get 2 episodes of just the Mandalorian near the end of it. Spoilers for the Book of Boba Fett. But Moriarty the Patriot, the last arc is just about Sherlock Holmes. That's all it is. It's not about Moriarty almost at all. So I don't know. It's real weird.
It is a little weird. It's a mystery that you could try. Again, I'm not promising you'll like it. I'm saying if you want another mystery show, it is a highly rated mystery show.
Is it highly rated? Man.
Yes.
People and their ratings. At least we agreed here. At least we agreed here today with the critics.
So yeah, Moriarty the Patriot has an 8.1 on my anime list, and it has the exact same Google rating as Great Pretender at a 9. I agree that it shouldn't, but
no,
it's a recommendation nonetheless. Okay, that's all. That's what we got for recommendations.
Please,
let's announce what we are doing next week. And then Skylar brought this up. And then Skylar has a challenge. All right. Oh, I have a challenge as well.
Oh my goodness.
Except I'll do it for the next episode. Okay. So Skylar has brought this up. We have brought this anime up in almost every single episode that we have recorded. It is Grimgar, Ashes and Illusions, or Grimgar, Fantasies and Ash. The name kind of varies, but we're doing Grimgar. It is a short 12-episode isekai, unlike most isekai you've seen. Here's what I'm going to say. If you haven't seen Grimgar, and most of you probably haven't, watch it before next week. It's 12 episodes. You can do that when you're taking your bathroom breaks at work. Watch the 12 episodes. It is really good. And join us for our conversation next week on it. Skylar, what's your challenge?
So my challenge actually has to do with our ratings. So my challenge is to you as well as our audience. Can you find a show that hits a technical rating of 3 on all rubrics?
A technical rating of 3. So the most average show
imaginable. The most average show of imaginable, so that it serves as the baseline for all of our ratings.
I love it.
We're going to hunt for it one show at a time, but if you can get it before we do, please jump down in the comments. That's amazing.
And good luck getting any of us to agree on. Just kidding. Okay. All right. There we go. That's our episode. Thank you all so much for joining, for watching, for listening. Be sure to, again, check us out, 310anime.com, 310anime.com. If you listen to these episodes, we also have them on YouTube. We have some fun little interactive images and videos and stuff. And hey, you can always, if you have YouTube Premium, you can listen and lock your phone there anyway. So feel free to check us out there. Subscribe if you like. We would appreciate it. Share it if you think other people will find this conversation interesting. And please leave your comments down below. We would love to see them. It's been a good time. Thank you so much for watching. Johnny.
Good night, everybody.
See ya.
Excuse me?
How'd you take my wallet?
What are you talking about? Weren't you the one who told me it was my wallet?
東京さか。